delivery and production report. Tesla has just released these numbers here on Saturday morning, and we are slightly below analyst consensus, but pretty close to what people have been expecting, largely, I would say. So of course, the delivery number here, as we can see, came in at 254,700 vehicles versus that analyst consensus in terms of analysts that had updated their forecasts since the Shanghai lockdowns was at 256,700. So a couple thousand vehicles short, but right in that same range that people have been expecting. As for production, Tesla was a little bit higher on production than deliveries, so building that inventory a little bit up, which, like we said, we expected due to drawing down inventory the last 3 quarters, and a lot of the production this quarter falling into June, the last month of the quarter. That makes it tough for those vehicles to all get delivered before the quarter technically wraps up. So Tesla says they produced, they produced these numbers despite ongoing supply chain challenges, factory shutdowns beyond our control. June 2022, this is something that a lot of people will miss, was the highest vehicle production month in Tesla's history. So as we talked about, even though the delivery numbers here aren't a quarterly record, what matters most for the rest of the year is this statement right here: highest production month in Tesla's history. Shanghai probably doing a record, Fremont probably doing a record, Berlin and Texas all probably record months, I would guess, individually, and those are going to all continue to ramp up. So very exciting as we head into Q3, despite a little bit lower performance here in Q2. And again, I think these are well within the range of what people have been expecting, so I don't expect any significant reaction either way when the markets do open again on Tuesday. We'll obviously see on that, and it's hard to predict this many days out. Of course, a lot can change, but I don't see any, major reason for a huge reaction here in either direction. Tesla does say that they will post their financial results for the second quarter after market close on Wednesday, July 20th. So a lot of people will talk about how that's early. That should have been the expected date. It's just how Tesla's calendar tends to fall. Yes, date-wise, it seems a little bit earlier, but it's usually the third Wednesday of the month. So no big surprise there on earnings. And of course, they'll do their earnings call. So that's about all the information that we get here. Of course, we get the least information as well. I think that's held pretty steady to last quarter. So let's flip over to my Excel sheet where we went through our forecast here and just see how that compared to what I had forecasted and what we might be able to learn from that. Give me a second here. All right, so again, this has my forecast in it. I have not updated that yet because we just got the numbers. So I think it's helpful to just kind of see where we started in terms of what that forecast was and see where we need to end up. So I was at 262,800, so about 4,000-ish vehicles high. I'm guessing I'm a little bit high across the board in each of these cases. Probably the easiest place to start is with Model S and Model X. So production came in at 16,411. So let's just go ahead and fill that in here quickly. Very accurate with that forecast, at least, so that's always nice to see. And then we've got probably Shanghai. So as we had talked about, Tesla was, from the rumors that we had heard, targeting somewhere around 71,000. With this slight over forecast from me, I'm guessing I'm a little bit over on Shanghai as well. So I'm going to reduce these here by, let's say 1,000 vehicles for now. Just go back to what we had heard Tesla was targeting. They should be pretty close to that. Maybe it's a couple thousand vehicles lower. I'd be surprised at anything less than that. So then I'm guessing that the rest of the numbers, or the rest of the, my over forecasting was coming from these other factories here. So originally I had Texas at around 3,000 for this quarter. We had heard that late rumor that maybe they were up to 5,000. It could be that some of those vehicles were not actually final production vehicles. Maybe that was some test production that didn't actually end up getting counted. So maybe Texas is a little bit high. Berlin, we had talked about how the vehicle identification numbers were extending up past 10,000, and Tesla had been granted permission to sell those pre-production vehicles. So those should be counting, but maybe those ended up counting as part of Q1 production. Could be something happening there. So I think in both of these cases, maybe we can slightly reduce these. It's kind of a guessing game at this point, where the rest of the additional vehicles would have been coming from. So, if we're somewhere in that ballpark for Berlin and Texas, then of course we're just left with Fremont, which looks like Model Y and Model 3 were just a little bit too high here in my forecast. So let's bump those down, 2,500 or so is probably going to get us there. down more into the ballpark of what Tesla delivered. So right now I'm at 258.2, and we need to be at 258.6 basically. So we'll just like throw 400 in here for Model Y. Now we're like 32 too high, so just give me like 1 second and we'll get this straightened out. We'll get our numbers matching. Everything will be great. All right, so that's our final number then. We can put that as an actual. Again, we'll wait and see. We'll get more information when we get these Shanghai numbers in about a week, and that'll give us a better idea of where the breakout is happening. But as Berlin and Texas come online, we're going to have, more variability now than what we've had in the past, where it's just been the 2 factories. We've been able to kind of back out Fremont production. We're not going to be able to do that as easily now going forward, just because of, what's been the expansions that Tesla has going on. That being said, so quarter-over-quarter production here from Q1, obviously just with the shutdowns in Shanghai, was down 15%, but still up 25% year over year. So despite all these challenges, Tesla having their biggest factory shutdown for more than a month, they're still able to grow at 25% a year, which is pretty close to a 50% spread from the rest of the industry, which most of the reports that we have been seeing coming in are down 20 to 30%. So given the context, still a fantastic quarter here for Tesla. Even with Bitcoin impairment, even with these factory shutdowns, Tesla should still deliver a healthy profit this quarter. Free cash flow will depend obviously on their expenditures, but I would expect positive free cash flow too, because that Bitcoin impairment will hit earnings, but it's not actually going to hit Tesla's cash flow. So you can get to back that out on the cash line. All right, and then as for deliveries, let's just quickly look at that here. Let me unfreeze these panes, and we'll row over. So my spread here in terms of the inventory build was pretty close. So it looks like the actual discrepancy here was slightly less. Maybe get that to 695. So we probably need to add like, oops, not how my formula works. And again, bear with me. Nope, other direction. I think the live stream has been relatively smooth so far, so cut me some slack on this part, but we see here that the inventory built by just about 3,900 vehicles. So Tesla's deliveries coming in there at 254,700. So in terms of deliveries, it was down 18% quarter over quarter. As of course, last quarter, Tesla delivered more than they produced. So we get a bigger spread there between deliveries and production. And year over year, again, still up 27% from the roughly 200,000 vehicles last year. So far this year, Tesla has now delivered, looks like 565,000 or so. So if Tesla wants to get to a 50% growth rate, which we'll see what they have to say about that in earnings if they still reiterate that, were 936,000 vehicles delivered last year. 50% growth on that would mean 1.4 million, almost exactly. So Tesla right now would need to be, let's see, 1404 minus our 565. We would need to do 839,000 vehicles in the second half of the year to be able to hit 50%. So I do actually still think that's very much on the table. That would be, let's see, an average of, of course it's 420,000. Obviously, if we add the decimal there, it's going to be an extra, that would give us an extra 1,000, but that's what Tesla needs to be ballpark at for Q3 and Q4. I think they'll be slightly below that in Q3. I think they'll be pretty easily above that in Q4, again, pending if we have any, major shutdowns during that period of time. So overall, not quite where we had expected, but definitely right in that same ballpark. Nothing to be, overly concerned about here. And again, nice to see Tesla talk about having that record production in June. I'm assuming we're somewhere around like 135,000 vehicles out of, or let's see, that's a little bit much, but 115,000 vehicles, somewhere in that ballpark out of Shanghai and Fremont each month, and then Berlin and Texas probably starting to add, 5,000 a month at this point, would be pretty reasonable and ramping up from there. So, that's already getting you to 360,000 easily at this rate of production, and Tesla should be growing rapidly here in Q3, especially. Like the major factor for Q3 is going to be the Shanghai upgrade, which, as we're sitting here talking, should be commencing. So a lot to look forward to for Q3. As long as these shutdowns can be avoided, we are heading into what should be a fantastic quarter for Tesla coming off that record June. So hopefully that's what analysts focus on. And again, when we get the financials, they're still going to be quite a bit better than last year, even with that impairment. This up 27%. Plus, we know Tesla's been prioritizing higher margin vehicles. That'll drive margins up. Obviously, on the opposite end of that, we've got Berlin and Texas ramps there. That's going to be a headwind for margins, but I still think Q2 earnings are going to be pretty solid. All right, so I think that's it. Then we can probably wrap this up. I did see, I think, maybe one super chat in here. Mike, thanks for all the hard work. Love the laugh math. It's hit or miss. That's insane that Tesla could still grow by 50% by having China offline for that amount of time. Yeah, offline for the shutdowns, offline for upgrades too. And of course, Chinese New Year, that was a hit in Q1. So as we head into Q3 and Q4, there should just be less downtime in general from a calendar perspective, plus hopefully avoiding those shutdowns. Troy, thank you. Appreciate that. Jameson, thank you. Appreciate it. As for ShareLoft, so I will put these numbers into my forecast for Q2. Obviously, we'll talk about earnings and revenue forecasts like we normally do when we approach earnings in a couple of weeks. But sometime this weekend, it might be on Monday, but sometime this weekend I'll put an update of the forecast out on ShareLoft, and we'll see who got closest. I'm guessing it wasn't me. So with my 4,000 variants there in kind of both lines. But we'll see who got closest on that and post that up on the forums. All right, so with that, I'm going to head out. I have a kayaking trip in about an hour and a half, so that's going to be fun. Hope everyone has an amazing 4th of July weekend. Don't forget to subscribe and sign up for notifications. You can also find me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast. And we'll see you again on Tuesday because, again, remember the markets are closed on Monday for the July 5th episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.